A dog has been observed barking all night in an apparent attempt to alert his owner that he is about to die. The dog can be seen standing by his owner's bed, barking frantically. The dog keeps barking, but his owner just keeps sleeping. Even after the dog jumps on the bed and barks in his ear, the man still doesn't wake up. Finally, the man passes away and the dog stops barking. People who witnessed this incredible scene were astounded by what they saw. Some people have even claimed that it was the dog who ended up saving the life of the man. But how could this have happened? Continue watching the video until the end to find out more. Thomas was a man in his early 60s who had a heart condition. He had already experienced a heart attack in the past, so he knew exactly what it felt like. For Thomas, his dog was his whole life. He spent most of his time playing with him, taking him for walks, or simply relaxing while watching TV. His dog was always by his side. In fact, if Thomas wanted to do anything, his dog would be right next to him, helping him out in any way he could. And if Thomas wasn't feeling well, his dog would stay by his side until he felt better. So you can imagine how close the bond was between them. However, one night everything changed dramatically. It was a cold winter night when Thomas went to bed early because he didn't feel very well. His dog, who had never left his side since he adopted him, stayed by Thomas's bed. As soon as Thomas fell asleep, the dog began to bark incessantly. At first, Thomas's family thought it was nothing unusual, so they just ignored it. But as the minutes went by and the dog continued barking, they realized something was wrong. They had never heard their dog bark like that before. The dog kept barking non-stop, all night long, without taking a break. Thomas' son became very worried about his father's health and decided to go into his room to check on him. When he entered the room, he noticed that his father was sleeping peacefully and seemed to be fine. But then he turned his attention to the dog, who was still barking non-stop. The dog seemed distressed and desperate, and the sound was getting louder and more intense. Thomas's son didn't know what to do, so he called his friend for help. The friend arrived at the house and went to Thomas's room to check on him. But when he heard the dog barking, he realized there was a real problem. They both tried to calm the dog down, but it wouldn't stop barking. The dog continued to stand by the bed, looking anxiously at his owner. It seemed like he was trying to tell them something important. His barks were loud and desperate, as if he was warning them that something terrible was going to happen. At first, Thomas's family didn't pay much attention to the dog's behavior. They thought it was just another one of his quirks. But when they saw how distressed and agitated he was, they began to worry. The dog's behavior was so unusual that they couldn't ignore it. They had never seen him so upset, and they didn't know what to do. As the night went on, the dog's barking grew louder and more insistent. It was clear that he wasn't going to stop anytime soon. They could see that he was pacing back and forth around the bed, whining and scratching at the sheets. He seemed desperate to get his owner's attention. But Thomas was still fast asleep. His family was worried not only about Thomas's health, but also about the dog's well-being. They didn't know what to do to help them. Hours passed, and the sun began to rise, but the dog still hadn't stopped barking. It was clear that something was wrong, and that they needed to do something to help Thomas. His family knew that he had a history of heart problems, and they were afraid that he might be having another attack. They had never heard him sleep so deeply through the night. When Thomas's son checked his father's pulse, he found that it was very weak and slow. It was obvious that he wasn't feeling well. They tried to wake him up, but it was no use. Thomas was in a deep slumber and didn't seem to hear the dogs barking. His family was getting more and more worried, and they didn't know what to do. As the minutes went by, Thomas's breathing became more and more shallow, and they could see that his face was pale and sweaty. They knew that they had to act fast if they wanted to save him. Suddenly, Thomas's son had an idea. He turned off the alarm on his phone and started recording a video to share with doctors later. Then, he began to play the video for his father, hoping that the sound would be loud enough to wake him up. At first, it didn't seem to work, but after a few moments, Thomas's eyes fluttered open and he started to stir. When he saw his family gathered around him, he looked confused and disoriented. It took him a few seconds to realize what was happening. When Thomas finally woke up, he was confused and disoriented. He didn't remember falling asleep and didn't know why his family was gathered around him. The dog was still barking incessantly, and Thomas's son showed him the video of the previous night. When Thomas realized what had happened, he was shocked. He couldn't believe that he had slept through the night and that his dog had saved his life. If it hadn't been for the dog's barking, he might have died of a heart attack without anyone knowing it. Thomas was deeply grateful to his dog for what he had done. He hugged him tightly and thanked him for saving his life. The dog seemed to understand the importance of what had happened. He wagged his tail and licked Thomas's face, as if to say it was no big deal. But in reality, everyone who witnessed the scene was deeply moved by the dog's behavior. Thomas went to the hospital for a checkup, and the doctors told him that he was fine. They couldn't believe that he had slept through the night and survived. They explained to Thomas that his heart was very weak and that he needed to take better care of himself. They also advised him to spend more time outdoors and exercise regularly. After the incident, Thomas's relationship with his dog became even stronger. He was more aware of the importance of taking care of his health and spending time with his loved ones. He knew that he owed his life to his dog and was grateful for the unconditional love and loyalty he received every day. The news of Thomas's recovery and the incredible behavior of his dog spread quickly. Everyone in the town was talking about the brave dog who had saved his owner's life. The local animal shelter even made a statue in the dog's honor and gave him a medal for his bravery. From that day on, Thomas and his dog became local heroes. They were invited to participate in various events and talk about the importance of taking care of our pets and the incredible things they can do. Thomas was also inspired to start a foundation to help people with heart problems and their families. As for the dog, he continued to live his life happily, always by Thomas's side, ready to help him in any way he could. Thomas often looked at his dog and couldn't believe how lucky he was to have him by his side. He knew that if it hadn't been for his dog, his life would have been very different. And that's all for the day. Don't forget to subscribe for updates on our next videos. See you in the next video.